Hello everybody, welcome to the latest episode of Games Up podcast. Now you were likely expecting Game of the Year today. I was, as well as was Lewis, and then a small commitment came up that he unfortunately had to go to. So Game of the Year will be next week, because on the day that you're hearing this, that tiny thing came up, and Lewis is graduating. So just something small, nothing too massive. I'm joking, of course. If you've got him on social media, please give him the biggest congratulations you possibly can. If you listen to this at some point, dude, well done. You deserve it so much, and everyone here at Games Up loves you and supports you in everything you do. Well done. Now, let's get on with the show, because it's been quite a week in video games, and it's been quite a week for us too. You may have noticed that we're now editing the show on a brand new workhorse. If you didn't see that, you can check out the behind the scenes video that we posted just last week. You may also notice this week that we finally get around to publishing our review of Overwatch's Moira. We've hit every one of the heroes that have come out for Overwatch since launch, but because of the issues we had with our previous workhorse laptop, we couldn't quite get the review out in time. Now getting a new one seems the perfect time to put it through its paces, so we edited the review for Moira, and that will be coming out this week. So we've been really busy. I'm also going to be really horrible and do some plugs here. Please, if you like anything that you hear in the show this week, please support it in some way. Drop it a like on social media, subscribe to it. We've seen a huge amount of support over the last week, like a lot more than I was expecting. Our last episode saw many more views than we expect in a week, and we've got up quite a few subscribers from 36 to 44. Now I know why that is, and it's not entirely inorganic, but it would be nice if it stayed a bit more organic. So if you do like the show in any way, whether it's on YouTube, iTunes, however you consume it, please support it, and hopefully we'll keep making stuff that you like. That's enough of the horrible plugs for now. Let's get right into the show, because as I said, it's been quite a week for video games. Microsoft Studios gained a new head of their processes in addition to Phil Spencer. His name is Mr. Booty. Fantastic name, and he is now overlooking the head of Microsoft Studios. Thanks to Eurogamer, we got it confirmed that Fable 4 is in fact in the works at UK-based developer Playground, although it's likely a few years until we'll see it in any kind of really strong form. We also saw a top-of-the-line Overwatch Pro player suspended, and rightfully so, I would say, for using a homophobic slur during a match. Don't fucking do that shit, that's dumb. However, despite all of this, it's Nintendo who made the biggest splash this week with their announcement of Nintendo Labo. Nintendo Labo is a slightly awkwardly named package that Nintendo will be releasing later this year that involves a selection of small software experiences and some cardboard designs that you can use to build your own custom controllers for those software experiences. For the most part, people responded in one of two ways, either championing this as a bastion of imaginative play in the gaming industry, or decrying it and saying that it was an artifact of Nintendo of old, a holdover from their exclusively family-friendly days. The kind of thing that failed to make a splash for nearly a decade, and the kind of thing that won't make a splash going forward. One way or another, there is a great deal to talk about with this latest announcement from Nintendo, so we're going to throw our 2 cents in the ring with the Joy Pros and Joy Cons of Nintendo Labo. The first con is the Joy-Con itself. For the most part, it seems like you're going to be placing your Joy-Con and your screen into these cardboard creations. Before anything else, Nintendo's console is not known for being the most robust piece of plastic out there. The screen alone can be scratched by putting it into and out of its console dock. There's definitely reason to be concerned about paying £60 to put your £300 worth of console into £3 cardboard. If you make it wrong, tighten the wrong band, or even just create it too flimsily, you might be putting bits of your console at risk. Not the biggest risk, it must be said, but still enough to be concerned about it before purchasing it. The first pro of Nintendo Labo is how quintessentially Nintendo it is. Other console companies have tried imaginative ways of play before, but none have quite hit the creative level that Nintendo are known for. The closest that any of them have arguably come is Kinect on Xbox's side, and maybe Wonderbook on PlayStation's side. But nothing is quite as interactive and forward-thinking as Nintendo constantly manages to do. No matter what your opinion on Labo is, whether you're going to pick it up and play it yourself, this is the kind of thing that should be supported because it encourages these kind of risks and experimentation to be taken by other companies in the gaming industry. Not all of them will land, some of them might even be crap, but if we support some of them will work, and the gaming industry will be richer and more varied as a result. Another big con of the Nintendo Labo is it really what the Switch needs right now? In a landscape where Nintendo was quickly approaching second place in a race where Microsoft is really struggling to run at the minute, this could be Nintendo's year to pull forward, and starting out with what's arguably quite a big gimmick could well be a waste of resources for the Japanese publisher. We know that we're expecting games from Nintendo this year, and we know that for the most part they're probably unannounced, as we don't exactly have a firm schedule for what's going to be the big tentpole releases of the Switch this year. But we also don't know the same for Microsoft, and we don't really have any kind of release dates or firm structure in place for Sony. So this could be the year when Nintendo really takes a leap forward and arguably edges out its Redmond-based competition. That's Microsoft, if you don't know where Redmond is. It was a deep cut that I realised after I made it. If Nintendo had the right lineup of software throughout the year, people would be clamouring for the console by the end of 2018, just like they were for it by the end of 2017, and it would be a good thing for Nintendo to have that demand. It certainly was at the end of last year. It would also be a big threat to Sony and Microsoft. Nintendo are a Japanese publisher, which means they're likely to do better sales in the East for a number of reasons, but they're also not struggling in America. This could be the generation when Nintendo actually comes back into the fold in a serious, long-standing kind of way. And starting off what could be the biggest second year in a console for a long while with a bunch of cardboard gimmicks is arguably a questionable way to do it. One of the biggest pros that can't be argued regardless of whether you like the game or not is that it will inspire generations of the future. Yeah, it's a gimmick, but it's the right kind of gimmick. It's the kind of gimmick that encourages teamwork and creative thinking. It's the kind of gimmick that when it lands and when it works and when that kid makes a fishing rod or a steering wheel or a piano, it might not hit with every child that picks it up, but it certainly will with a few, and it will make them want to do it going forwards. It's a kind of gimmick like Minecraft, where not everyone needs to get it, but for those who do, it can actually shape their lives. That doesn't happen all the time, and it certainly doesn't happen all the time in video games. It's nice to think that it's companies like Nintendo that promote this kind of thing to happen, and that we should support it more as a result. Personally, I think the biggest con of Nintendo Labo right now is that it seems to be quite a closed ecosystem. When I first watched the trailer for Nintendo Labo, I thought, this is awesome! I'd love to be able to design and implement my own control scheme for something via a cardboard design. And then it quickly dawned on me that as it stands at the minute, that's not what Nintendo Labo is. At the minute, it's a series of designs created specifically for pieces of software. You won't be making whatever your heart desires or whatever your brain can come up with. You'll be making the best version of whatever Nintendo have already decided is best to make. You won't be able to make another musical instrument other than the piano because Nintendo have designed a way to make the piano. Nintendo Labo could be amazing if it's opened up to many people and many other pieces of software, but for now, or at least on day one when it launches, I don't think that's what Nintendo Labo will be. It will arguably be a sort of cardboard version of WarioWare, in which there are some software experiences which may well be fun and may well be deeper than I'm giving them credit for, but they will be that and that alone, a fairly closed ecosystem. But it's for this reason that the biggest pro of Nintendo Labo is its promise. See, right now, the ecosystem does in fact look closed, but these ecosystems always start as closed until somebody shows the promise behind them. Imagine if, in a year's time, Nintendo Labo is being used not just to make a steering wheel for a small piece of Nintendo Labo software, but a steering wheel for Mario Kart 9. Imagine if when Metroid Prime 4 finally hits the Switch, you won't just be able to use your Joy-Cons or the Pro Controller, you'll be able to design some kind of gun game style cardboard gun for it. Imagine if you could create peripherals to make 1-2 Switch that little bit more immersive, so you don't pull the Joy-Con from your side for the quick draw game, instead you build yourself a cardboard holster. See, this is where I think the true potential of Nintendo Labo lays. Man, that's hard to say. Not just in what's designed at the minute, but what will be designed in the future. If Nintendo manages this properly and allows the community to really input into what those designs can be and what software they'll have effect on, then there's really no limit on what games Nintendo Labo could affect and in what ways it could be used. Maybe the kids that are inspired by Minecraft will be inspired by Nintendo Labo to make a thing that will inspire them more in Minecraft. That was a bit tricky to wrap your head around, but the thing to take away from it is this. Video game software can always be inspiring, and video game hardware can always be inspiring. What Nintendo Labo has the promise to be is a gap between the two. We're always looking for ways for video games to become more immersive or more inspirational. VR has taken off for exactly that reason, and if Nintendo Labo is managed properly, what Nintendo might have created is a tool set for players to design their own controllers, their own tools for video games, and implement them in the best way possible, almost like Nintendo's own version of a makerspace. Right now, it looks like a fairly closed ecosystem, and its scope seems to be somewhat limited. But Nintendo has shown over the last couple of years that they're really good at surprising us and managing their products well. If ever there was going to be a time for Nintendo Labo to succeed, it's right now. And that's a good thing, because that's when Nintendo Labo got announced. We've got to wait and see how exactly it does and how exactly it's handled. But I think there's a lot of promise here. And a lot of people have decried it for being not what Nintendo needs right now. And I agree, it's not what Nintendo needs right now. But it might be what their players need. And that's a pretty important thing. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the latest episode of Games Up Podcast. I hope that you enjoyed it. Again, massive congratulations to Lewis. And next week, we'll be doing Game of the Year. We finally got all our ducks in a row for that. So Game of the Year comes next week at the end of January, and we will see you then. Thank you very much for listening. Like and subscribe to us if you feel so inclined. We are on YouTube, 6:30 p.m. every Monday, and much earlier that day on iTunes. You can catch it on your way to work. We're on Twitter, @GamesUpcast for both, and we will see you next week. Until then, the game's up.